calling to order the Bamberg School District 1 Board of Trustees meeting. Today is April 27th, 2021. It is 6:30 p.m. and that is the first item on the agenda. The second item on the agenda is the administering of the oath to board members Naomi Eccles, seat 3, and John Hires, seat 4. So if the two of you can come on up and we'll take care of that for us. All right.
Ladies first.
Thank you so much.
Remember what you said. Thank you.
Here, one of y'all hold the Bible for the other,
There
and
we
then
go.
we'll swap out.
Certainly.
All right, put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You might have to say this out, I'll stand
No,
back
you're
from y'all. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of
to exercise the duties of
the office to which I have been elected,
the office to which I have been elected,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
and preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations and welcome back. Your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I'm duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of the office
to exercise the duties of the office
to which I have been elected,
to which I have been elected,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect,
and preserve and protect
and defend the Constitution of this state and the United States.
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you.
All right. Now that we have that very important business for our VIPs, very important persons out of the way, we are now down to item number 3 on the agenda, which is approval of the agenda. The board members have had an opportunity to receive and review the agenda. What is the pleasure of the board with regards to approval of the agenda?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion on the floor that we approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, and if you're in favor of approval of the agenda, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the ayes have it. We are now down to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes for the March 15th, 2021 and March 24th, 2021 board meetings. You have all had an opportunity to receive and review those 2 sets of minutes. What is the pleasure of the board with regards to approval of the agenda? Approval of the minutes on those meetings.
Madam Chair, I move that the minutes of March 15, 2021 and March 24th, 2021 be accepted as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that we accept the minutes as they've been presented for the meetings of March 15th, 2021 and March 24th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor of approval of these minutes, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion passes. We are now down to item number 5, which is school reports. First up, we have is Stacy Walter of Richard Carroll Elementary School.
Popped up from back here. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our house.
Good evening. Thank you.
Our enrollment is steady around 648. That has us with about 484 coming face-to-face and 164 remaining virtual. We just administered within the past 3 weeks, what we call a practice TDA, text dependent analysis, on March 24th for both face-to-face and virtuals. We actually got our virtual students to come in for that. That is a part of state testing. It's the writing assessment that they have to complete. And we always do a practice one with our students. So we were very pleased to see the virtual kids in here for that. We are in the process of completing MAP, DRA, STAR, and Acadience testing for grades K through 3, and preparing, like I said, for state testing in grades 3 through 6. We have had 9 discipline issues since the last board meeting, a little bit high, but that's okay. Our COVID cases at Richard Carroll from 316 to 415 since the last board meeting until present. We've had 2 face-to-face students, no virtual, and 1 staff. And there were 2 other things that did come up I just wanted to share briefly that came up within the past week. We had actually 12 of our teachers receive awards from the foundation called Kids in Need. They received boxes of supplies for themselves and their children in their classroom, big boxes. We were very pleased to get those and proud of those teachers. And we also celebrated Earth Day across the school, but to be specific, our 3rd grade classes all went together, purchased a tree, and began a tradition of every year planting a tree around the school in honor of 3rd grade.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Walter? No? Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, next up we have Mrs. Denise Miller at Bamberg Middle School.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Happy to see all of your smiling faces. Our current enrollment is 197 in total. That's actually up from 184 last spring this time. We have 148 face-to-face learners and 49 virtual learners. I'm happy to say that we've had 6 weeks free of COVID in our building, and we issued we issued report cards on April the 2nd. And I'm one proud principal, Ms. Charlotte Slamp. She is a 7th grade teacher. She was recently awarded a $1,000 Savannah River Nuclear Solutions Innovative Teacher Grant that she's going to be using in her science classroom.
Oh, great. All right. That is wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Miller? No? All right, thank you so much. All right, next up we have, under school reports, we have, it says Dennis Ulmer, but we have Mr. Jordan Smith, I believe, in his place.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
I am not Mr. Ulmer, like Ms. Walker said, standing in for my boss man. I am proud to be here before you to let you know what's going on at Bamberg High School. Total enrollment is 345 students. 233 of those are face-to-face, 112 are virtual. On Wednesday, we had something exciting happen. The Be Proud mobile workshop visited Bamberg High School. This is a 53-foot custom double expandable trailer which featured 8 highly interactive stations that utilize tools currently offered by companies across the technical professions to train their respective workforces. All that is fancy jargon for saying a neat bus pulled up, kids were able to get in and actually practice driving forklifts, practice doing technical things. Really got the 18-wheelers. I was in there too. It really, it was neat because it really got the kids interested in, looking at the tech field. Our JROTC program, we're very proud of them. They did some community service by picking up trash on US 78. It was hot, and they actually got assigned 2 miles. Most organizations get 1, I guess because they're tough. They got 2 miles. They did an awesome job doing that. Prom was held last Friday, April 23rd. It was off-site. It was beautiful. As principals, we had no complaints from parents, students, or anyone. So it was safe, very enjoyable, and looking at the pictures, it was just awesome. Senior cap and gown pictures will be held at Bamberg High School on April the 30th. Our final blood drive for this year will take place on May 14th. And graduation. If you notice the handout I gave you, graduation is coming up. It will be May 28th on Leon Maxwell Stadium, 7 p.m. And this is a copy. Ms. Stokes was so helpful in printing this off for me. This is a copy of what our students get and our parents get to remind them about the things coming up this week. So if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Smith? No? Thank you, Mr. Smith. You did a great job. All right. Next up on the agenda is item number 6, which is athletic updates, and I will turn that over to Mrs. Brown.
Switch real quick with the principal so that I can stand, if that's okay. All right, our athletic director and Coach Robert Williams has furnished us with a copy of his monthly athletic report. And again, thank you for allowing me to do these for him. He's a very busy person. Like tonight, we have baseball, softball, and track and field going on. So anyway, soccer today is 11-4 on the season. We have finished second in the region. Playoffs will start May 4th for soccer. Baseball is 12-4. We have finished first in the region. We'll be hosting our first playoff game on May 15th. Softball is 15-1. Softball is also finished first in the region. They'll also be hosting a first round playoff game on May 15th. Track, the boys and girls track teams have had a very strong season. We are hosting 5 other schools for the region meet on May 3rd. This meet will determine the qualifiers for lower state in each event. In golf, golf is 8-2 on the season and be played in the state tournament on May 10th in Batesburg. So as you can see, our athletes are doing exceptionally well, and we're all very proud of them. And speaking of that, I don't think you guys have this handout, but this was just handed to me this afternoon following a signing last night. We all know that we have some very strong athletes in our school, and we're very strong athletically and academically. And I just want to praise the following students for their accomplishments. All of these students are receiving athletic scholarships. So I just wanted to update you on who signed. And last night, we had 3 remarkable young men do a signing last night, and the rest are yet to come. But the first one's Mr. Isaiah Washington, who will be signing for football with St. Andrews, basketball, Justin Baxter, Jacoby Crosby, Brendan Williams. Justin signing with Atlantic Cape CC, Jacoby Crosby with Voorhees College in Denmark, Brendan Williams with Columbia International. In wrestling, Jackson Stembridge signing with the Citadel. And in track and field, Angel Johnson signing with Benedict. So we're very proud of all our young men and women and our seniors for these great accomplishments.
That is wonderful. Can we get
And I would like to say a special thank you to our athletic director and all of the coaches who are very involved in these young people's lives, both in school and out, to help them receive these accomplishments, as well as their parents who have been supportive through all the years and help get these children there. So thanks to all of them.
Great.
All right.
Are we moving down to item number 7 now? Down to item number 7 on your agenda is the student staff recognition and superintendent's report, and turn that back over to you, Mrs. Brown.
Okay. First, I would like to recognize a young lady who I've had the pleasure to get to know this year. Her name is Ms. Annie Walters. She works with Save the Children Foundation, and she's from Blackville Hilda, but of course the foundation serves geographically needy schools. To date, I cannot tell you the amount of items that this foundation has donated to Bamberg School District 1. We started off the year where they donated hundreds of bottles of hand soap to students and family, and these items go from we're just the facilitator, we deliver the items straight to students and families. But they have donated to us hand sanitizers, hundreds of bottles, soap, hand soap, Play-Doh for young children, a number of books. Ms. Walter's been busy trying to disseminate those out. And just recently, last week, Mr. Paget went and picked up another shipment of donations from Orangeburg, and one of them was a huge bin that's almost the radius of this floor, full of miscellaneous toys for needy children. So I wanted to thank Ms. Annie Walters and the Save the Children Foundation for doing the things that they're doing for children in our communities and families.
That's wonderful.
Next, I'd like to give you an update on the COVID-19 vaccinations. Today, as much as Ms. Michelle can't see our lead nurse and I can estimate, because we're getting more and more people signing up for the vaccines daily, even after our district vaccine schedule has been completed. But right now, we're estimating somewhere between 60 to almost 70% of our staff at Bamberg District 1, and this includes all staff, from certified staff to non-certified staff, that includes your custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, administrators, is almost 60 to 70% of us are now fully vaccinated, which is great. Okay, moving down to item 7B. Oh, one more thing. I would like to recognize Miss Larkin Hyatt and her English class at the high school. She's our secondary English 2 and English 4 teacher at Bamberg High School. She shared with me this week some of the things that some of her students had been doing, and it just blew my mind, and I wanted to share this with our board and for the public who may be listening. And I'd like to also recognize these children for some of our students for some of the amazing things that they're doing. First, in our English 4 class, Ms. Hyatt's English 4 class, she has just completed reading Mary Shelley's Gothic Frankenstein novel, which is a college level novel. And she was worried at first because that's somewhat over the Lakeside reading scores of some of our students. But given the interest that the students had in that novel and what they've done, every student in that class has been successful and done very well and taken it to a whole nother level. Now they're in a sharp critical debate regarding inherent responsibilities of the heart at scientific discovery because of that novel. So just taking it to a whole different level. Second, I'd like to recognize the sophomore in Ms. Hyatt's English 2 class. They have been studying, each child was assigned a topic, or they got to pick a topic. They had to go out and research that topic and become a, quote, expert in that field. Then they did demonstrative TED Talks. Are you all familiar with TED Talks? Where you have a professional or an expert speak on the subject. All of the students participated on those and actually did TED Talk presentations. But there's a few here that I would like to highlight. Mr. Bailey Basil investigated the various psychological effects of bullying on the adolescent mind. Ms. Shania Bannister tackled the murky statistics of human trafficking in South Carolina. And Kenny Grant analyzed group perceptions associated with behaviors deemed respectful in certain social situations, and how these perceptions shape social interpretations of different groups. So I just wanted to give you an example of some of the critical higher level thinking and some of the amazing activities that some of these children, our students, are engaging in. So I wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Hyatt and her students that are working very hard in that English class.
That's good.
Okay, now we get to item 7B. Good news. So Ms. Furr and I received this memo from the South Carolina School Board's Insurance Trust, who voted unanimously on March 18th to return $5 million of workers' compensation insurance back to members of the Workers' Compensation Trust. Therefore, the district will be notified soon. Ms. Furr will be getting notification on just how much of that will be allocated back to us. So I wanted to share that with the board. For item 7C, the virtual district program and regulation waiver. If you recall, at our last board meeting, I asked for permission to seek waivers for us to offer or participate in a virtual program option. In the motion that was put forth that night, one of the regulations, the numbers was incorrect, and so we inadvertently excluded grades K through 5 in the waiver request. So tonight, I'm asking the board to once again make the motion for the district to seek a waiver. for offering a virtual to include grades 4 through 6. We will not be offering a virtual option for K through 3 next year. So this time, the correct number is here for the South Carolina Regulations Code is 43-231. So I'm asking the board to vote again tonight to include that regulation so we can include a virtual option for grades 4 through 6 next year.
Okay, board members, you have heard the request coming from Mrs. Brown. What is the pleasure of the board?
Can I ask a quick question before
Absolutely.
you?
Sure.
Now, the children say that have done virtual this past year and elected to do virtual again, but they're not up to standard. Is there any way that we can persuade or, I don't want to say, make them, come, for face-to-face, but are there any avenues to,
Yes.
get them back in the classroom?
Yes, and if you recall, I briefly went over the principals and myself met. We formed a virtual committee. We also formed in conjunction with the USC Salkehatchie Superintendent's Consortium, so that all the districts in our region are pretty much doing the same thing. Ms. Molly Spearman, the State Department, is well aware of the students who attended virtually, how they're struggling. Also, the burden that has put on teachers, but more so because of students struggling in that environment and needing to be face-to-face. As you know, the governor has signed into law that districts must offer the 5-day face-to-face instruction for the remainder of this school year and for next school year. With that, districts actually have the option of offering a virtual option. We have opted to do so because we do have some extraneous situations where it's medically necessary for students now to attend virtually. However, the governor and Ms. Spearman has given districts the authority and the right to develop their rules. Last year, we didn't have time to do that, basically. We put together, as best we could, a virtual option. This year, we've had more time to plan. But what we have is an application process. It will be posted after our board meeting tonight. You give the permission for us to seek the waiver. We complete that. We'll be posting our application for parents to apply if they wish for their child to attend virtually next year. There's a eligibility criteria this year standard. For instance, your child cannot score on district's assessments below the 25th percentile. You have to have a written recommendation letter from the school's administrator, and you could not have failed a course the previous year while you were attending virtually, nor failed any subject. So there's going to be some stringent criteria. Now, this will exclude the medical necessity situations. Those will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So the state, the district were well aware that there are some students that virtual is just not the right learning environment for that child. So we are coming together as consortium, and all the districts around us, Mr. Hires, are doing the same thing. There's going to be some criteria for students to qualify to attend virtually.
And I have a question. So when you talk about consortium, I know that before you had mentioned something about dealing with the whole Salkehatchie thing, and that did not pan out.
Yes, and I do need to catch you up to date on that, so thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing that up. If you recall, we had entertained the idea of participating with the Salkehatchie Consortium's virtual program. Following that, and in more talks with the State Department, and how does that look as a program, it came out that teachers that work for the consortium would no longer belong to the districts for which they work. For instance, if we had a secondary English teacher that was teaching a virtual for the whole consortium, she actually would not work for Bamberg School District 1 anymore. They would become employees of the consortium. That's one reason why Dr. Simmons and myself agreed, and of course he's the interim superintendent for Bamberg School District 2, in collaborations with our State Department, the consortium, and ourselves, decided we can't afford to lose our teachers. Also, we felt like our students would be better served by our staff and our district. So we'd like to retain our students and serve them ourselves. But we're also very small. We did a cost analysis with Ms. Burr, participating with the superintendents in the consortium and myself, on what it would cost per pupil to participate in that. and it was more an economic advantage for us to offer our own virtual program. So in collaboration with Bamberg School District 2, we have drafted, and our principals from both districts, we had a joint district meeting, we have drafted and developed a very, what I think is a comprehensive, the principals are behind me, you can't see them, but I'm sure they would agree, virtual option program for our own district next year without participating in the consortium. But it's very much aligned to the consortium districts because we're all mirroring each other.
Okay.
And the consortium was very understanding.
Okay, so a lot of the attachments that,
All the-
that you all will be utilizing that for this particular in-house.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
The
Okay.
handouts that I gave you previously
Right,
all stayed the same. They, instead of reading consortium day, they now read Bamberg School Districts 1 and 2.
okay, so I think that addresses what you were talking about, Mr. Hines. Okay,
And I will be glad to, we still have that in draft mode, the principals and myself. I hope to meet with them next week following our board meeting. We're gonna finalize those options, and we can email those out to you electronically, so you'll have a final version of that,
okay,
our virtual plan.
okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion if you all are interested in doing it.
Madam Chairman, I move that the board approve the interim superintendent's recommendation that the district provide a virtual school program for grades 4 through 12. And I'll further move that to facilitate the district's virtual program, the board authorizes the interim superintendent to request waivers from the School Board of Education for the seat time and the school day length requirements contained in the South Carolina Regulations 43-231-2 and 43-231-2A regarding K through 5 instruction.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, before we vote on this, if we move forward and you have the votes, instead of doing it electronically, can you make sure that we actually get hard copies?
Absolutely.
It's easier for me to see it
Sure.
in hand. All right, all of you, if you're in favor of moving forward with this, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the ayes have it, and you can move forward, so if you can just make sure that we get hard copies. Thank you so much. I mean, you can email it, but I'd also like that.
Sure. And we held off on that this time, just pending to see what the board's vote would be and the permission given to move forward. So,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. We are now down to item number 8. I'm sorry, were you done with?
I have one more thing that I
Oh,
want
yes.
to run by the board. In your packet, you have a handout. When I assumed the interim superintendent's position this year, of course, one of my tasks was to do program evaluations. And as a result of that, and as a result of our consolidation talks and our shared services agreements with our neighboring district, one of the major findings from my program reviews in the district was this that concerns Leader and Me at Richard Cowell Elementary School. Also, after meeting with the principal, the assistant principal, and multiple staff members here, in conducting my own review, these were the results. I wanted to share that with the board. So as you know, we have now been doing Leader and Me at Richard Cowell Elementary School for about 9 to 10 years. Over the course of that, I provided you with a fiscal breakdown of what that has cost the district over the span of this time, what the district has footed from 2012 to 2021, but also what Richard Cowell Elementary staff and students have raised themselves to help fund this program. So you can add those two together and get an overall cost of what it has cost us over the course of this program. But then comparing that to the student academic achievement data for the past 5 years, you can see that there's been little to no academic gains. So with that in mind, we all agree, the administrators and myself, that we will no longer do an agreement with the Leader in Me to continue or sustain that program at Richard Cowell Elementary School. As you all may also recall that about a year ago, we started turning our attentions towards, and as you all know, time changes, curriculum changes, initiatives change. The initiative out there is action-based learning. And we started equipping classrooms at Richard Cowell Elementary with more sensory and movement opportunities and items and curricula. We also furnished, bought and purchased the Blue PE system in the gym. And we also have action-based learning labs on each hallway. We will continue to put our focus, time, and attention towards that initiative. It is proven already within the last year or two to help curb behaviors, to help curb classroom interruptions. You know, our little kids are all active and they need movement. We also have kids with special needs that need sensory attentions, and we're getting more and more of these students in our classes. So that's the initiatives we'll continue to sustain, and we'll continue to review programs at every school going forward. So I just wanted to share with you that this was the first one that I myself had completed. And I want to thank everyone that helped contribute in that endeavor.
All right, great, thank you. We are now down to item number 8, which is the draft of the 2021 through 2022 school calendar.
Okay, you have before you, in collaboration with the Orangeburg School District, the Orangeburg Consolidated School District, as well as Bamberg School District 2, a draft calendar that we are proposing for next school year. We have implemented shared staff development we have included shared staff development days with Bamberg School District 2 staff. We've closely aligned our beginning date, our ending date, and other significant holiday breaks in there, including Christmas, spring break, all with Bamberg School District 2. So I present to the board a draft calendar tonight for your first reading.
All right. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the draft of the 2021 through 2022 Bamberg School District 1 calendar, and you've heard the comments that's been made by Mrs. Brown. What's the pleasure of the board with regards to the draft on the school calendar?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the draft of the first reading of the 2021-22 calendar.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor of moving forward with the first reading of the draft of the 2021-2022 Bamberg School District 1 school calendar, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the ayes have it, and that draft has been approved. We are now down to item number 9, which is consolidation updates. Now turn that over to Mrs. Brown.
Okay. Last week, as you know, we submitted our consolidation plan to Ms. Molly Spearman at the State Department. I am thrilled to inform you that we received a memo in another email today from Mrs. Molly Spearman in her office accepting and approving our consolidation plan. So there'll be more information forthcoming from that. We were just given that information late last week. So our plan has been approved. Shared services update, which is item number 10, which this leads right into. We're continuing to share services as I've spoken to you before. Continuing to work with personnel and the interim superintendent with Bamberg School District 2 to recognize areas where we can expand our shared services for the remainder of this year as well as going into next year. So we're working hard, continuing to look at ways that we can conserve and combine services and save money on both sides.
All right.
And better serve our children.
All right, we are down to item number 11, which is the monthly financial report, and I will turn that over to Mr. Vanderberg.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Picking back off what Ms. Brown just talked about, before I left the office today, which you might not have gotten, we received, in the consolidation plan, Bamberg 1 was named as, because we haven't consolidated yet, as the fiscal agent for the consolidation plan. Right before I left the office today, I received the first part of the allocation from the State Department
makes it more equitable. We have some sports, as you very well know, that generate a lot of money. For instance, football generates a lot of gate money. But we have some sports that generates little to no money, such as wrestling or golf. But yet, those children are still entitled to the uniforms, the BE shirts, the equipment. So doing it this way makes it more equitable, that the sports that are able to support themselves can help support the other sports that cannot support themselves, if that makes sense.
I'm turning to you, Mr. Hires, because I know that you are involved with several sports. I know in particular with wrestling, but I know that you volunteer and you're involved with other sports. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
How will each sport, there's got to be some limits set on, the funds for each sport. I mean, we just can't say we have one pot there. I mean, there'll still be, like a budget set up for individuals, and it'll be monitored and.
Well, this would also give Mr. Williams an opportunity to set up a budget. Right now, he doesn't have that because every account spends out of their account. So if we move everything to general athletics, he can budget out, okay, football, you have this much, wrestling, you have this much, baseball, you have this much. And that way he can monitor and make budgets and we can keep up with it.
Right.
And then the fundraisers, if they don't have the money in their fundraiser, they can't spend the money. And so then it's easier to say, no, you don't have the money, you can't spend it.
It gives back more centralized control
Yeah.
of our whole athletic department.
Which I think that'll have to happen. I mean,
Yes.
Yes, it will
it'll
have to
have to
happen,
be-
especially
yeah.
in consolidation as well.
Right.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this. So what you're saying is we will have like one general account where when people go to the games and they pay at the door, however they pay, it goes into a general account. Now, with regards to fundraising, that's gonna be a separate account. So when coaches are talking about, shoes and cleats and whatever else it is that they need, that is going to be held in a separate account.
Right.
Now, what about concessions? How will they deal with concessions?
Okay, right now, I think general athletics is handling a lot of the concessions so that money goes into that general account to help all sports, not just
Okay.
one sport.
Right.
And that may be something, Mr. Williams, y'all may correct me if I'm wrong, but that may be something Mr. Williams wants to continue, is let general athletics run the concessions so that, because I know for like basketball, for some sports, we didn't have concessions this year because of COVID. Now baseball does their own concessions, and that goes into their fundraising because they handle it. They buy the supplies for it out of what they start up with. They handle all their concessions, and then they turn the money at the end of the season in for their fundraisers to pay for their spring tournaments and things that they do.
Okay, so if another sport, let's say basketball or wrestling, wanted to run their own concession stand like what you're talking about with the other sport, would they be allowed to do that as well?
They can talk to Mr. Williams and they can work that out. Yes, they would be allowed, if general athletics didn't want to, yes, he could let basketball do it. Or maybe basketball could do what they've done in the past and rotate. At one time, girls did it one year, boys did it one year, and
Right.
that's what they used to do camp and other things.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to, I understand what you want to do, and I don't have a problem with it, it makes sense. I just want to make sure that when it comes to the concessions, for example, if wrestling or basketball decides that they are going to foot the bill for stocking the concessions, then whatever the return is as far as profit is concerned should be a part of this fundraising
Right.
account?
That would be
That's
what it would
correct.
be, yes.
Okay.
It would not go, if wrestling or basketball or golf or tennis or whatever sport did a concession stand, that would go to their fundraiser account.
Okay, but if, let's say the general fund of this, funded the concession stand for that, then that would go back into that fund?
That would go back into the general fund for all sports.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the coaches for the sports that are not doing it, like who you said that does it with the concessions? Is
Baseball.
Baseball does it.
That if baseball is allowed to do that, then any other sport should be allowed, should have the same option to do that. I don't want a situation where they're the only ones who can do it, unless say John comes back and he's figured out that he's got some people that can do the concessions, because they wanna run it, and basketball feels the same way, and golf feels the same way, that the AD is saying, no, you can't do that, because now you've got a favoritism situation going on, because you're allowing it for one sport, and you're not allowing the option for all the other sports that may want to do that.
And you're right,
I just
but
wanna make sure that that's
And
clear.
I'm sure Mr. Williams would address that, and, you know, if you got to a point where wrestling wanted to do the concessions for, because basically the only time you really have inside concessions is volleyball, basketball,
and Russ,
and wrestling. So what you could do is say, okay, we got these sports, we're gonna rotate who does the concessions.
and they
So
were doing
each
that
sport
before
gets-
COVID.
Yeah,
Volleyball would come in and run concessions during basketball games. They would rotate out. Basketball would sometimes do their concessions. I think wrestling has
They
been
used to
invited
years
to
ago.
do that. The previous wrestling coach ran his own concessions. But I think Mr. Williams, I know, he plans on continuing that and even bumping that back up now that we're getting beyond that COVID crisis and opening that back up even wider going into next school year.
I think the general athletic fund is a good idea, because, like I said, you have some sports that, you know, have low attendance,
Right.
but they have referees they have to pay for.
Right.
And they're never going, they're always gonna lose
They're
money,
always
and
in the
that's why a
hole.
lot of those balances have gone up over
Absolutely.
the years. Plus, when you have like, say, yesterday, you had a softball game going on, you may have a baseball and a soccer game going on. There's only one person at the gate taking up money going into the main gate. So how does that, you know, get distributed and so forth? So I think a general fund to take care of the basic expenses for the game, you know, paying for the referees and that sort of stuff is definitely a good idea.
Okay.
And we'll make sure it's very equitable, and Mr. Williams had already planned on doing that, but I'll make sure I reiterate to him to make sure in his coaches meetings that all that's explained.
Okay, then you all have heard what, has been talked about here with regards to the people account update and the three things that, is going on with regards to the people accounts, as well as what's required of the board for approval on, you want 1, 2, and 3 that you're referring
One
to, or
and
just
three.
1 and 3?
just one green
Oh,
on.
okay, yeah, with board approval on 1 and board approval on 3, so 2 is not necessary. What is the pleasure of the board with regards to item number 1 and item number 3 on your pupil account update?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the recommendations for item 1 and 2 on the pupil account update.
1 and 3?
Yes, 1 and 3.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor that we approve the items on the update for items number 1 and number 3. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor of this, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, hearing none, the ayes have it, and you all are a go on this.
All right. The next item that I need to go with you is, Ms. Walker, you received the letter, Ms. Brown received the letter, I received the letter. We are on fiscal watch due to our fund balance issue from our audit, which was our only finding in our audit was our fund balance fell below the minimum requirement. The letter is in your packet. I have to write an improvement plan, plus I have to
the reason why we're in this situation.
We're in this situation because your fund balance has to give you 3 months of operating, 3 months of operation. Our fund balance fell just below that. We have, what? We're almost there. We're just like 200,000 out of being right at where we need to be. With some things we've done this year, we should bring it back up to where it needs to be. This happened to us in 2016, 17. I wrote an improvement plan then. The very next year we came out of caution. Now we're in watch, and so I'll write the improvement plan expressing the things that we're doing going forward. We're doing shared services. There are positions we're not replacing. We're doing a lot of things to try to handle our drop in enrollment and not fill positions that we don't need to fill. So with all that we're doing, we should come right back out of this.
We also had some very costly unexpected expenses during that fiscal year, including roofing issues, heating and air issues, mold issues, all of that, very costly to repair, and those were unexpected. So it did dip just a little bit into our general fund, but as Ms. Burr said, we are doing, building that back up almost monthly now, so should be out of it within the next few months.
Okay.
But like I said, that'll come back next month for approval from y'all to submit to the State Department. And, looking ahead at the budget, there's a Ways and Means budget out there, but there's still not a House or a Senate budget that is passed. I received something yesterday about retirees, and I'm still waiting to see which version passed about negotiating salaries. That's my biggest concern is, as of now, I can negotiate salaries for retirees, and we cut them 20%, which helps the district. Right now, that's in limbo, so I'm waiting to see what happens with that. And I'm waiting on a good budget to pass. The Senate's gonna give us $16 whole more than the House. So we're still way behind in our base student costs. We're like still back in the 90s with our base student costs, which is really sad. But the Senate is gonna give us about $16 more on the base student costs, which would help. But I am still waiting on some final numbers from the state and some final information for the retirement system as to how we're gonna handle some things.
Okay.
And other than that, your packet is in there for you for everything that's going on in the district as far as expenditures. And if y'all have any questions, I'll answer them, and I'm sorry for the overload this month.
All right, board members, you've had an opportunity to hear all of the comments, as well as to have received and reviewed the monthly financial report. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a quick question. So in regards to the fiscal watch, is there any expectation or what's the process for that? Like once you send that in, what's the expectation of, like, I guess if they were to say anything back, or I guess if we had any expenditure come up, would there be any, what would be the expectation for what would happen?
Okay, so what happens is when you submit your plan, it's basically you're saying, okay, this is what it's gonna take me to get out of fiscal watch. It's like steps. Your fiscal watch 1 year, then your fiscal caution the second year, and then your fiscal emergency the third year. So you go through like steps. So let's say something happened and we couldn't come out this year, we would just go to fiscal caution. We would write another improvement plan, submit it to the State Department for approval, and then, work to come out. I'm never going past 1 year, so I'm in large hopes. I only stay in it 1 year and I'm right back out. That is the plan.
And this is not atypical. Districts flow in and out of that often because of things like I just said. So it's not atypical. What they're doing is sending you a caution letter saying, better watch that, and we get right back out, and then we're good to go until the next audit.
Okay.
And they will send a letter once we're out of it, clearing us saying, you are now out of it.
Okay. So So board members, what is the pleasure of the board with regards to approving and accepting the monthly financial report?
Madam Chair, I move that financial report be received as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that the financial report be received as it's been presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the ayes have it, and we are now down to item number 12, which is visitors' comments, and we have Mr. Ken Allen. Before he says anything, if he has anything to say, I would just like to say congratulations. I know that you are newly elected to the city council for Bamberg, and that's an accomplishment. And I hope that you learn an awful lot about the ins and outs of the city. I've been where you are at and sat there for 8 years, and there's a lot to do, so.
Coming fast.
Just want to congratulate you for having been
Thank you.
elected, and I'm sure you'll do well, and you'll find it very interesting.
We'll ask them questions too.
Okay?
The
So,
questions I had are really just generic. Who makes your or the school's COVID rules, or like does that handle here at the local school board, the state education, the governor? Like when something COVID related emanates, like when a mask going away, who's the decision, but where does that all come from? Does anybody know?
Can
I just
address
thought
that,
I'd
Ms.
ask.
Walker?
Because I
you
don't
have
know.
the answer to that, and
It's a
sweet
culmination.
and simple.
It is sweet and simple. It's DHEC and CDC. They pass that information down to schools, and our nurses and the administrators get that, and
Okay.
we disseminate that out to
So
staff.
they're advisors, you make the
Yes,
decision.
absolutely.
Didn't know it, that's why
Yep.
I asked. Any idea, I notice we all meet here, and it's, relatively open, people are allowed, but on your May 3rd meeting with District 1 or 2, COVID and, public can attend via Zoom, but it just seemed like a difference of, kind of opinion when you put the 1 and 2 together. Is there any reason for that? I don't know if you'll know the answer, I just thought, I saw that, and I'm like, oh, I wanted to go to that, I go to District 1 all the time.
Well, we're having a joint meeting, and the joint meeting will talk about something that is dealt with in executive session. So essentially, if you come to the meeting, which you are free to come to the meeting, you will basically, and I'm just going to
Well,
make
Monday's
the,
executive session. Oh,
and that's it. So that's where we're at with that.
See, I am learning something in city council.
Hey,
You know,
and you can use that when you go into your, you'll know the process.
I got one last question, and it's maybe called crazy, it's out there, somewhat opinion, but is there a fixed or set weather policy when you cancel school? I'm just saying, I swear, school's gonna be canceled this Friday, 3 days in advance, and, ooh, that's probably gonna be the best day to play golf when the time finally comes, and I don't know how you do it, so you ask.
okay. Can I address that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, real simple. There's various things that go into that. We have an emergency preparedness county director. She advises school districts. She sends us for instance, the last time we canceled school was not due because of the rain that was expected. It was actually due to the winds got exceeded 40 miles an hour. So you have state transportation laws to where we can't put buses on the road. That's one factor that we go by. So it's more than just wind, rain, severe storms. It's also transportation safety and then school safety, all considered in that. So we have various agencies advising schools on when you should or should not cancel school. When those agencies leave it up to the districts, I consult with the administrators and with our transportation director to make those decisions collectively. I also call around and see what other districts are going to do. 2 weeks ago, we had to close schools at the spur of the moment just because we had a water leak in our cafeteria here and could not open our cafeteria and had a section off cordon of that hallway, that wing. So just various things go into decisions making about closing schools. But the weather, we are in imminent danger, when we are in imminent danger, for instance, like tornado, hurricane, that kind of thing, the emergency director here advises the school and sends out the notices to the school. When it's questionable, we look at the wind speeds, and the state transportation office advises us when we can and when we can't run buses.
I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that, that's why I asked.
Yep.
I appreciate the answer, thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you so much. We are now down to item number 13, which is executive session. What is the pleasure of the board with regards to going into executive session?
Madam Chairman, I move that we go into executive session to discuss contractual matters, personnel recommendation for hires, personnel recommendation for resignations, and student transfer requests.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, what is the pleasure of the board? I'm sorry. I had a brain freeze. Hearing none, if you're, do we have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, if you're in favor of going into executive session, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, hearing none, the ayes have it. We are now going into executive session for discussion of A, contractual matter, which deals with personnel, B, personnel recommendations for hire, C, personnel recommendations for resignation, and D, student transfer request. We are now, all right, board members, I will entertain a motion that we come out of executive session.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we come out of executive session at this time.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that we come out of executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second that we come out of executive session. Is there any discussion? All right, if you're in favor of coming out of executive session, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, we are out of executive session. We are now down to item number 14, which is action on executive session items. What is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the memorandum of agreement for shared physical therapy services between Bamberg District 1, Bamberg District 2, and Barnwell District 45, that we approve the personnel recommendation for hires for employees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and that we approve the personnel recommendations for resignations for employees 1, 2, and 3. That we also approve the student transfer request for students 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
All right, board members, you have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor that we approve these motions, or, I'm sorry, sorry about that. If you're in favor of all of this, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the ayes have it. Those actions have been approved. We are now down to item number 15, which is a motion to adjourn. I will entertain that at this time.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor of adjourning, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposition? Hearing none, the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.